Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've got a lot going on and a lot of very busy work days, so we're so thrilled that you took the time out of your day to come and speak to us and be a part of this event. Thank you so much. Before we dive into it, let's just real quick go down the line. Who are you? What's your name? And what role do you fill on the propagation team?
All right. I am LEAH Medley. I'm the propagation manager. And I basically just oversee the day-to-day operations of California Condor propagation. And of course, I couldn't do it alone. I have my amazing team, and I'll let them all introduce themselves. But I do just want to mention one person who couldn't be here today. Her name's Heather SPRINGSTEED. She's a California Condor propagation specialist and our registrar.
And I'm Chelsea HAITZ. I'm one of our propagation specialists here. We all kind of contribute to all aspects of the job, but something that I provide is a little comic relief when needed. Also, I like contributing to creative problem solving and pretty much any sort of way we can engage the public with what we do in propagation. I like to do stuff like that. Carolina?
I'm Carolina GRANTHON, also a propagation specialist, but I'm also really interested in research, so I've been trying to compile and publish our propagation data, hopefully to try to help our managing decisions in the future.
My name's WUORI, and I am a propagation specialist as well. So I feel like I do a little bit of everything on the job. One of my favorite things to do is work on projects that I can put things together with my hands, and anything that involves crafting.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much again. The missing person, do we need to worry? Are they locked in a...
Should
I be looking at those cameras behind you right now? All right, so we're going to dive right in with an extremely hard-hitting Pulitzer-level journalistic question, and that is, tell us the latest Condor gossip.
Oh, yeah.
What's the 411?
Yeah, nothing too scandalous right now. We do have...
Then why am I talking to you?
Yeah, right. We do have 45 condors in total, and that is with 9 juveniles that were produced this year. We do have a couple new pairs that we're planning to introduce pretty soon, and that's based off of the Condor pairing matrix. So every year in the recovery program, or every few years that is, we'll kind of have a geneticist associated with the program evaluate the relatedness of all the birds, and then they make suggestions for future pairs that could increase the genetic diversity of the whole population. So we do have 2 birds that are getting to know each other right now, George and Hansi. They're still separated by a gate, but pretty soon we're going to open up that gate, and we do expect a little bit of drama as they're getting to know each other, but that's really normal, and we think they're going to do pretty well together. So that should be our most scandalous item coming up.
Scandal indeed.
Yeah.
I was wondering how you got those pairs together. I assume there's no Condor form of Tinder, so
Exactly.
beak left, beak left. All right, so certainly a lot of successes in your program, and one of the big ones being this event today, 4 more condors back into the wild. But certainly I'm sure that there's some negatives as well, things that don't always go correctly. And dealing with a species such as the California Condor, a bad day at work matters a lot more for you guys than it does for a lot of other people. So just wondering, as a team, what are some of those big challenges that you face, and how do you get through them?
I think personally my biggest challenge is to hold the birds. And you've seen the birds, they're 20 pounds, they're 2 feet tall, they have 9.5 foot wingspan. They're large birds, and I'm a small person. And so I feel like it's a bit of a bigger struggle for me than the rest of the team to hold these birds. But at the same time, it's such a thrilling and exciting experience. And I think you just get through it with a lot of confidence and just knowing that the rest of the team is there to back you up.
Yeah, and kind of going along with that same theme of having the team to back you up. Like you said, it can be a really stressful job, and I think something that we all kind of struggle with is finding that work-life balance. because these birds are so important to us, and you know, a lot of them are in the same age group as we are. So they've lived long lives, they have unique behaviors and bird personalities, if you will. So it's an amazing responsibility that we have, but it's also a heavy responsibility. So as a group, we make sure to take care of each other, and when life gets stressful, we're there for each other. We can take a step back if we need to and kind of refocus. So yeah, definitely the teamwork makes the dream work for us.
For sure. Finding life-work balance can be really difficult because we're so dedicated to this job. And we're able to actually see the condors on our phones from home. So we'll be in our beds at night just like looking at our phones and watching the birds. Like sometimes we just have to realize we need to take a step back and do help each other out and take some time off and find that work-life balance.
Surf some Facebook instead.
Yeah.
You know. Well, you've just hit me right there with something that's very surprising. I wasn't aware that you had such an awesome setup that you can be lying in bed at home and still doing your job. What are some other surprising things? You know, I certainly have had the idea in the past that, well, propagation, you just stick a mommy and a daddy together and they do what they do, and then you take baby and out the door. And you know, clearly from what we've seen of your work, it's way more complex than that. So what are some of the most surprising things about your job that a lot of people wouldn't realize?
One of the most surprising things would be the number of different hats that we have to wear throughout the year. So a big portion of our job is like daily care and observation of the birds. But we also have to, you know, try our hands at things like fixing leaking pipes, sewing privacy curtains, driving a tractor and doing brush clearance for fire safety, and even writing grant proposals.
And in the past year, we've all become like construction design experts because of the construction of our new Condor building. And so I've learned more about like door types than I ever wanted to know.
Electricity, yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think something else I think some people may find surprising is that it's not just sticking birds in a pen and babies pop out. You know, it takes a lot of skill, a lot of technique. We really have to be super dedicated and understand these birds and use kind of a science-based approach to really understand what these birds are going to do and be able to produce those birds that are well suited for release.
Yeah, certainly. You hit on something there, that the science, and you know, I'm sort of wondering how have all these advanced techniques that you've developed, how have those come to be? You know, the project I know has been going on for quite a while, but how does it come to the point where you're at today that you're having the level of success that you are? Yeah,
so San Diego Zoo and LA Zoo were the first facilities to breed condors in captivity in the late 80s when they brought them into captivity for the first time. And so they developed a lot of the techniques, and then the Peregrine Fund joined the condor breeding program in 1993. And from there, we all collaborated along with the Oregon Zoo, who joined later. And we've really all worked together closely to develop these techniques and figure out the best way to raise these birds so that they're well suited for release. Because they are very intelligent birds, we are constantly learning. So we never say we know everything because they surprise us all the time. And one of the things that the Peregrine Fund has kind of discovered is that we can use actually single birds as foster parents. And this gives the young a chance to have that natural parent interaction so that they are raised with those better social skills as opposed to being raised by a puppet. So that's one thing that's been really exciting, and all the facilities do it now. And it's made for some really great birds for release into the wild.
That's fascinating stuff. How do you end up with the single parents? Are those ones that were tried to pair up and didn't work, or where do those come from?
Yeah, so most of them were breeders at one point, and they became so successful at it that they're just overrepresented. They have a ton of chicks out there, and their genetics are not currently needed, but because they're so used to people, we are not going to release them at this point. Before we discovered we could do this, they would just be sitting there. They wouldn't really have a great job. So it's been really great to give them a job, and they're amazing at it. Like Carolina said earlier, when they see that egg that we put in there, the dummy egg, they get so excited, and they're so happy to have that parent-chick interaction again. So it's been really exciting to give them something to do and to have it be beneficial to everyone in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that. It sounds like it's a great benefit for everyone involved, for the chick, for the adult in the stimulation, and for you guys and having less to do.
Definitely.
You don't get to play with hand puppets, but, you know, small trade-off.
Right.
So what all changes in your job throughout the year? I assume it's not the same thing in January that it is in July, and certainly listening to the list of stuff that you do from Aaron, it sounds like there's a whole bunch going on that your small little team has to take care of. So how does that shift throughout the year? Is there a busier time than another? What all do you all do?
Yeah, so our year is completely dependent on what the birds are doing at that time. So pretty much like come January, the birds are getting interested in breeding, and we're observing them on these monitors all the time, just looking for courtship behaviors. And then as we get closer to laying season, it'll let us know when a bird's going to lay, how a pair is doing, all of that stuff we're watching. And then once we have eggs, we are in our busy season, because it takes a lot of monitoring to both do our management practices, like if we want to increase production, a lot of times we'll double clutch certain birds, and if they're just going to have one egg, we're going to watch them incubate up to about 2 weeks, and then we'll pull that egg to artificial incubation. And once an egg is in artificial incubation, we just have to monitor those incubators all the time. So it's a very delicate process, and we see them through this very long incubation period. So they'll hatch around 57 days. So when they get to the start of that hatching process, we're going to watch it really closely, make sure if we need to intervene, we can do that. So we work pretty long days around that time of year. And then once we get that egg back in with the parents and they're about a month old, they're a little less delicate, and we can kind of shift focus and start to work on our cleaning duties and, you know, like our projects and stuff like that we were talking about, brush clearance, and making sure that the juveniles from the last season are getting prepared for release. So yeah, definitely a shift in focus around the summer months. But yeah, just completely dependent on what those birds are doing.
I keep getting distracted because I see giant wings opening up just every so often behind you. It's quite entertaining. One follow-up question to that, I noticed you said if you want to increase the production, is there a time where you're not wanting to do that? Because, you know, to my mind, more condors is better, but is that not always the case?
Yeah, so like Leo was saying, sometimes birds can become overrepresented, and if you double clutch birds all the time, that's going to happen a lot quicker, and we'd have to, you know, definitely evaluate the pairs more frequently, but also some birds are just better at it than other birds. It definitely takes a lot of energy to produce a second egg. And there's just a lot of variation between individuals. So we pretty much have in mind who's good at it, whose genetics are valuable, kind of weigh all those things. You have anything to add to that?
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's true. Like, for the most part, we want to produce as many as we can, but there's just certain pairs that we won't double clutch for the reasons that Chelsea just said.
If it's not going to be successful, why do it? And you don't want to end up with the condor version of the kid from Deliverance. So it makes sense. So out of that list, to me, it certainly sounds like there's a fun part of the year and a slightly less fun part of the year. What are your favorite portions of the job?
I think my favorite part of the job is whenever we have to trap the birds and I get to handle them for like tagging or for transporting them. It's just really nice to be up and close and personal with the bird and kind of experience their, you know, different behaviors and different personalities.
And you're not getting to do that very often because you have to be so hands-off with them, correct? So it's just those specific moments.
Yeah, it's when we move our young birds that have recently fledged moving them to our socialization pen. At that point, that's when we do all our tagging and work up health checkups. And then when we move birds into the field. And then also during the summer months when we do vaccinations of our adult birds, vaccinate them for West Nile virus.
Yeah, you can definitely appreciate how amazing they are when you're holding them in your arms and you see that beautiful coloration on their head. And like Carolina said, appreciate how strong they are too. It's pretty incredible.
I think my absolute favorite thing is watching the male see the eggs or the young for the first time. And so you have the female laying the egg, and then the male shows up to the nest box, and they just see this egg, and they're like, oh my god, I love it so much. And I have like this super cute story. One of our single parents, actually, Kuyama, he's such a good single parent. And a couple years ago, I got to put the dummy egg in his nest box. And I did, and he almost caught me. He was in the nest box within like 5 or 10 seconds. And he jumped in and he looked at this egg and he was like, what is this? And like was a little like, what? And then like rolled it a little bit. And then he was like sitting on it, and I love it. It's mine. I think it's just the cutest thing to see how excited they get.
Yeah, and just watching like the nestlings grow up and do all these like goofy little nestling things. In the summer when it gets hot in there, they'll like stretch their necks way out, and then their wings all weird, and then their legs straight behind them and stuff. And with these awesome cameras, we do get to watch them super closely and see them kind of develop their little bird personalities, if you will. So that's always fun for me.
I think my favorite part of the job is the fact that we get to watch them grow up. I mean, we have these eggs when they're just a couple weeks old. We get to candle them, see them as the tiniest little embryos that are barely visible, and grow up into this 20-pound bird with a 9.5-foot wingspan. And all within the span of a year, they grow that big. And it's just amazing to see, and then to be able to have them go out to the field and really stretch their wings and take flight for the first time after seeing them from this tiny little egg. It's just super rewarding. That's definitely my favorite part of the job.
I can imagine, yeah. And seeing those personalities develop too. I know you have to be careful. We're scientists. We don't want to anthropomorphize too much, but
for sure,
you definitely see that personality when you're interacting with them up close. That's fascinating, hearing a single male who clearly didn't put that there himself. Just, this mine, I love, go away, kind of thing. I did have one question here, and this totally might not make the video. It's just for me. I'm curious about the wing tags. Does each bird have a unique identifier? And what happens when you run out of unique identifiers? Because I did the math, and there was only like 1,300 combinations or so. And,
right,
you know, we're still only 500 birds, but it's, at some point, are you going to have to start using emojis? How's that going?
That's a good idea.
That's funny. So each field site actually does their tags a little differently. We just use black and white, and we do the last 2 numbers of their stud book number. So if the stud book number is 1045, they'll have a white 45 painted on their tag. When they go out into the field changes their tag to whatever system they use. So I know California uses different color tags. So the 100s will be red, the 200s will be yellow, the 400s will be green or whatever. And I know in Arizona, which Aaron actually worked in Arizona, they do a combination of letters and numbers, and that identifies each bird differently.
Correct.
So everyone kind of does it a little different, but yeah, eventually they may run out, I guess.
It'd be a good problem to have if it does.
They work their way through the alphabet, and I think now it's like probably towards the end they're gonna have to start again.
And just start over.
That's where we end up with thumbs up, fist bump, the condor.
Yeah.
It'll be great. You mentioned that there's, you know, different field sites, different programs. The Peregrine Fund is just one of many partners that have led to the success of the California Condor recovery over the years. What makes the Peregrine Fund's program unique? What's special about it?
I think what makes us really unique is that we're working with such a critically endangered species. And one of the main things we do is we try to minimize disturbance as much as possible. And so a law goes on, but it goes on kind of behind the scenes. And so we're switching their eggs and we're vaccinating their young. And we're doing all of this kind of while the birds are distracted or eating or on the ground. And so it's such a unique thing for us to like have them be as undisturbed as possible. That's going to encourage successful reproduction, is going to discourage aggression towards their mates, towards their chicks. And those are the kind of things that we're looking for and what makes us so successful.
I think like at many other zoos, they have special departments for, say, like ordering food and like food prep or like cleaning and maintenance, things like that. And here, back in propagation, we have to do most of that for these birds. And I think it comes with its own set of challenges, but it gives us a better appreciation of the scope of the effort that it takes to save the species.
Yes, it is certainly not a small feat, and you know, all of us are so appreciative of what you do and grateful, and the birds would be too if they completely understood. I'm sure they don't, but you know, we're grateful for them. So looking forward into the future of the Condor Restoration Project, where do you see this going? Where do you hope it's going? I know you've got some big projects in the work like the new barn, but what's in the future? What's coming up for you?
Well, in the immediate future, I think just continue to make as many birds that are great for release into the wild, but I think our ultimate goal is to kind of work ourselves out of a job. We are here to bolster the wild population and save this critically endangered species. And ultimately, I think if the wild population was doing so amazing that they no longer needed this captive propagation, even though we would all lose our jobs, I think we would all celebrate, because that means that the condors are doing great out there. And one of the main ways we need to get to that point is to just continue to engage the public and encourage people to be stewards to our environment.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing this, you know, to spread the word. And it's easy, I think, to look at that goal and say, oh yeah, it'll be great if it happens, but it's never going to happen. And I think that's a awful attitude to have, because it is a very viable goal. Yeah. You know, the Peregrine Fund has done it before with the peregrine falcon, our namesake. And you know, looking at the numbers of this program within my lifetime and looking at you, I'm guessing all of your lifetimes, there were no California condors in the wild. And to look at where we are today, it's so encouraging. And you know, I don't want you to lose your jobs, but I want you to lose your jobs.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we feel.
That's a good future to look forward to. All right. Well, thank you so much. We really do appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this event and lend your expertise. It is a remarkable program that you have here, and I hope our viewers have gotten a sense of that. We're very fortunate to have you, and you know, looking forward to future years of success.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, now get back to work. Go. Condors.